you all for being here. We have a full house and it is unfortunately now standing room only because of the fire code. We can't bring more chairs in, so thank you for those who are willing to and able to stand for doing so and offering your seats to those less able. My name is Chris Robinson. I am the moderator for this portion of the forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the St. Petersburg area. The League of Women Voters was founded 106 years ago, just before women gained the right to vote in 1920. We are a nonpartisan public policy organization that has never endorsed a political party or specific candidate. We encourage informed and active participation in government, and we work to increase understanding of public policy issues through education and advocacy. We have also welcomed men as league members since 1974. A couple of our kind timekeepers are representing the men for us today. Thank you. Tonight's forum features the candidates for the St. Pete Beach Commission, District 3. As a courtesy to others, please silence all electronic devices. This forum is being recorded and will be posted on the League's website. The recording may not be edited or used for campaign purposes. No other recording of this forum is permitted. A few people asked about this, so it's my phone. I will try my best to get it up by lunchtime for you. If you have not yet submitted a question card, please raise your hand and a League volunteer will come to collect it. We will address as many questions as time permits. We've had a lot of interest and questions, sometimes on similar topics. So if you hear a question that's fusing some things together, just be aware that we're doing our best to get through as many as possible and combine those that are on the same topics. The 2026 municipal election will be held on March 10th. Please note that this is a forum, not a debate. The purpose of this forum is to provide candidates with an opportunity to present their views on issues of concern to the residents of St. Pete Beach. Interruptions and personal attacks are not permitted, and we also make sure all questions can be answered by both candidates. So if you are still thinking of questions, make sure they're not too personal. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then pose the same questions to each candidate. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. A timekeeper will provide a 1-minute warning sign, a 30-second warning sign, and then a stop sign. And time is up. After the question and answer portion, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. The views expressed by the candidates this evening are their own and do not represent those of the League of Women Voters. The candidates will now make their opening statements. We've decided the order based on coin toss, and we will start with Causey. So please, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Fabulous. Thank you for being here, everyone. And I've met a lot of you. Causey, and I'm running to be your commissioner. Why? Because I have retired now, and I have 8 hours a day to put into this job. And I feel like we need 8 hours a day to get us back from this double hurricane disaster that we've had. And I've been already started helping people, and I can tell you it takes a lot of time to work through complicated permitting issues. So being retired is going to allow me to serve you better. Secondly, I started my career out in mechanical engineering. I worked at a nuclear plant and did design work. Moved on to the aviation engineering industry, where I worked with design groups. So I understand pipes, I understand water flow. I think I can make better decisions than your current candidate can regarding the infrastructure challenges like our failing sewer lines that need attention. I have a long history of volunteer service, and that was in my state that I lived the longest, which was in Maryland. I did a lot of fundraising for public charities with some of the biggest organizations in the world, like Northrop Grumman, like the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, and also Johns Hopkins University, University of Maryland, and even the governor's office. I did at least 2 contracts with the governor of Maryland's office. So funding is a big challenge for us, and I have the experience, I think, to do that. Also, I guess one of the biggest things to know about me is that I am 100% committed to voting with the consensus opinion in District 3. So that is the biggest thing I would like to emphasize. Above my own opinion, I will vote for the consensus opinion.
Thank you very much. And now candidate Rzewnicki, please, with your opening statement.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and for working really hard to accommodate everyone's schedules. And thank you to all the residents that are here tonight and the candidates also for joining us. I'm running for re-election because St. Pete Beach deserves steady, experienced leadership that puts our community first. Over the past few years, our city has faced real challenges, from hurricanes and flooding to aging infrastructures and pressures on our local businesses. Through it all, I stay focused on 3 core priorities: resiliency, recovery, and unity. First, resiliency. As a coastal committee, we must plan ahead. I've worked to strengthen our infrastructure, improve stormwater systems, and support long-term strategies that protect our homes, our coastline, and our quality of life. Resiliency is not a slogan. It's a groundwork for a safe and sustainable future. Second, recovery. After Hurricanes Helene, Milton, and I can even add Eta and Idalia, I spent countless hours helping residents and businesses navigate FEMA rules, city processes, and the confusion that follows a major storm. Recovery requires clear communication, transparency, and a commitment to getting people the information and support they need. I've pushed for a better coordination and more accessible updates as our community can rebuild faster and with less frustration. And third, unity. St. Pete Beach moves forward when we listen to each other. I've built my service and asking thoughtful questions and making decisions on facts and treating every resident with respect when we disagree or not. Our city deserves leadership that brings people together, not leadership that divides or dismisses concerns. I am proud of the work that we've done, but there is a lot more to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the first question, we will start with candidate Rzewnicki. What, in your opinion, is the greatest challenge we're facing in restoring St. Pete Beach?
Thank you. The greatest challenge that our city faces right now is recovery, as well as infrastructure. When I first moved about 16 years ago, we are in a city that has over or close to 100 years of infrastructure that has lacked attention to it. We have stormwater systems, water, reclaimed water, that is failing. Most of us are very well aware of our roads, when the water is coming up through the roads, asking for those to get repaired. So infrastructure is definitely a key concern for our city overall. And recovery. We have, residents trying to get back in their home. Walking through the neighborhoods and talking to people, one of the biggest things that's touched me dearly is knowing there are people who are not in their homes. Okay, there are a lot of people who are living in RVs, living in tents, and not knowing what to do. We recently have been receiving letters even from Pinellas County, which I know has been very threatening to a lot of people as to what to do next. So one of the big things that I want to focus on is trying to get these people help and not feel so scared about how are they going to get back into the home that they love in the city that they want to stay in. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Causey, same question?
Yeah, I agree that our infrastructure is definitely the main problem that we have, along with recovery, especially in the permitting. We're only 50% done with the permitting from the hurricane, and it's proving to be a tedious and time-consuming process to get through this permitting process. And we need to all be thinking about how we can be more compassionate to help people who are still displaced from their homes. As far as the infrastructure goes, I think that I've knocked on most of the doors in District 3 now, and I would say almost nobody has said that we need to fix our 40 miles of leaky sewer lines. But because we do know that we have failing sewer lines and they're at least 20 years overdue for the type of maintenance that we need, if these things fail, we are not gonna be living in this city without, proper sewer lines. So this would be the most catastrophic thing that we can deal with, because nobody would be living here. So, dealing with that, I will say that we've got a study going on right now where we're using cameras in the lines, and we're finding out where the biggest holes in our lines are and that are causing sinkholes. And by the end of fall, we should have a report, and we'll understand how much cost we're gonna have involved in that. So the city is saying that they anticipate it being something like $200 million to fix the sewer lines. So this is a giant problem we're facing. It's like a tsunami coming in after the 2 hurricanes. And so funding is gonna be a major challenge to do everything that we want to do.
Thank you very much. And for the next question, we will start with candidate Causey. How are you different from the typical politician?
Well, okay, well, when I retired and when I was winding down my flying career of 25 years with Southwest Airlines as a pilot there, and I did a ton of volunteer work at the same time. During that period of time, I was nominated and was awarded Volunteer of the Year for Southwest Airlines and from across the whole country. So a lot of work that I was doing there, and I thought I'm kind of rolling into retirement. But then in 2023, we had this crazy event where we had 4 of our commissioners all resign at the end of the year. And these guys appointed commissioners to take their places, and so we entered into 2024 with 4 unelected commissioners and just 1 elected commissioner that were making decisions for our city at that point. And at that point I realized I think I'm gonna have to start paying very close attention to what's going on around here. So that's what really got my attention as to I might need to stay engaged. And so as the more I've learned about this place, the more I think they can use my help. I've got a long history of working with design teams, and teamwork is what I believe in, so I see how I can help the city in these ways. So mainly, I'm not doing this just as a hobby. I'm not doing it as because it's fun. I am only here to help this city and help us, you, get to not just the recovery, but really where we should be in a city and a community, and I think we have lots of room for improvement that I can help us with.
Thank you. Candidate Rzewnicki, same question.
So what separates me from a politician?
Yes, how are you different from the typical
politician? So I wouldn't call myself a politician. I would think the word that's most appropriate is that I'm an advocate. Since 1994, starting as a teacher in my life, I've realized the disadvantage of many students that I was working with that didn't have an equal education. And I told myself back then in 1994 that the only way that I could advocate for these kids is by going to Tallahassee to try to make a difference for the Department of Education. So I have been doing this since 1994, advocating for kids, for juvenile justice. I worked for 17 years lobbying for kids to be treated and serviced appropriately. When I came into this community, I like to talk to people a lot, so people who know me know I like to talk. So I talk to a lot of people in my neighborhood, and fortunately because of that, I'm a natural to listen to people and want to advocate for what's going on. So since then, in 2010, we started resiliency groups, which back then was called flooding groups, by the way, and we started working on trying to address the infrastructures of our neighborhood. We're talking about, and I live in the Donsasar neighborhood, a structure that's 100 years old. It's not an easy fix. We can't do this overnight. So I've been advocating in Tallahassee for our city, for appropriations for our city. I have been working on many grants, secured grants, for one particular one for the shoreline resiliency of our neighborhood, and hopefully getting that to permit. So again, I'm an advocate. This is a nonpartisan community that deserves to have advocates for the residents that live here. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the next question, we will start with candidate Rzewnicki. There were a few questions on development, property development, so combining those, how do we balance keeping our community character with the pressures of developments and keeping too much large development at bay?
Okay. Thank you for the question. So currently our comprehensive plan gives us a framework for working with development and our land development code. I can give you two examples, two of the most recent examples in our city. We had the Corey development where it was unanimously voted by the commission and our mayor to go through and reward this development or CUP based off of our framework, our land development code. And then of course the last one, which was the Windward Pass, which unanimously was voted no. Again, I think those are examples of how the commission and the mayor work together to be able to address the concerns of the community by evaluating projects against infrastructure, capacity, stormwater, resiliency needs, traffic impacts, neighborhood character. It means asking tough questions, requiring clear public benefits, ensuring residents understand what is being proposed. So I think I will continue to do the same thing, is ask those tough questions, use data-driven information to make responsible decisions for our community overall. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Causey, same question?
Yes, well, I feel like the most important step in the process is spending the time in the neighborhoods on a weekly basis, because as these projects come through, we, the residents in the community, need to understand the project clearly. And so the way that's going to happen is by maintaining a level of awareness. And I can do that by weekly neighborhood meetings where you can come out your front door and meet with me, and I can discuss this project with you. So the key point with any project that comes to the city is that it needs to be agreeable to the majority of the residents. The majority of the constituents need to be in agreement. So if my personal opinion were at odds with what I heard the consensus was, I would still vote with the consensus. So that is a commitment that I strongly believe in. If I'm voted into this job, it'll be by a consensus of voters. And because it's the consensus of voters that gave me this job, I'm positively going to vote with that consensus. Now, how do you know what a consensus is? It takes a lot of hours you may even end up polling and knocking on doors. But the bottom line is you have to know what the consensus opinion is on a project. So if a commissioner is committed to voting with the consensus, I think the brilliance of this is that it forces a person who is promoting a project, like a property owner or a developer, to sell the pros of the project to the community rather than just to an individual commissioner. And this is an age-old struggle. It's just the shortcut for a developer is to have a commissioner on the board, and multiple commissioners if possible, that will help expedite their project. But this is not the best way for any community, especially ours.
Thank you very much. For the next question, we'll start with candidate Causey, and this is a few questions given on road safety. What are your plans for improving road safety, including addressing speeding cars and also discouraging pedestrians from darting across the road rather than using the crosswalks?
Well, I like considering our sidewalks are so narrow here and in such bad shape that I feel like the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit is way too fast for Gulf Boulevard, and if I had my way, I would try to get that changed to 25. It would slow things down. And another way to accomplish a safer average speed on the highway would be to have traffic lights at each intersection where there's a neighborhood, because I know that a lot of feedback that I've gotten from knocking on doors involves people driving too fast. And secondly, trying to get out of their neighborhood with a left-hand turn. So if we continue to develop our comprehensive plan, and I'm not talking about overdeveloping, but I'm talking about what we've agreed to in our comprehensive plan, we're gonna see more and more traffic, and it's gonna be more imperative that we make it easy for our people who live here in the community to get onto Gulf Boulevard safely. So once again, if we put in more traffic signals and sequence them properly, it should allow the people who try to cross the streets from the tourist areas to the restaurants on the other side of the street, they'll see this crosswalk and they'll say, okay, that's a traffic light, I know how that works. I'm gonna go over there and press the button and I'll cross the street. The other thing is we have so many tourists driving on the street here on Gulf Boulevard, our one main street. They come from places that don't have these flashy lights. So I think this is a major thing. The flashing lights is not familiar to a lot of drivers, so it's very concerning. I think everyone is familiar with traffic lights, and when the lights turn yellow, they're thinking, okay, maybe I should go faster, but the point is, when it's a red light, they realize it's a red light and they're gonna stop, and that's when the tourists and people are gonna cross the streets. I feel like that's the absolute safest solution on Gulf Boulevard.
Thank you. And candidate Rzewnicki, same question?
Well, it is unacceptable for anyone in our city to be hurt or killed in a traffic violation. And we know there has been some deaths and unfortunate people ending up in the hospital with severe injuries. Pinellas Forward had, this is for Gulf Boulevard if anyone is familiar, but Pinellas Forward had presented to the city before the storm, so this has been some time in the making, on safety for Gulf Boulevard. And I think anyone who participated probably would have been right here in City Hall and would have seen some of the proposed ideas in traffic calming, bikes, widening of the sidewalks, which is one of the things that is on our comprehensive plan, is to improve the sidewalks on Gulf Boulevard by widening them. But it takes a lot of time and money and consensus, right? We need to work with the state to deal with Gulf Boulevard. We don't own Gulf Boulevard. And we also need to work with the county. We have a couple of our roads that are also county owned. And then for the neighborhoods, again, it's very difficult. Even in the neighborhood I live, or in a lot in District 3, I know there's issues in Lido, there's issues in Boca Ciega, but the biggest problem is consensus, because not everyone in a neighborhood agrees to what the streets are to look like. So it's an extensive study process, trying to get a traffic study for a neighborhood, doing data collection, and then neighborhood community meetings to be able to come to some kind of agreement as to whether we can place a table, a speed bump. Anybody who's done Gulf Winds drives knows that those speed bumps did not appear overnight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the next question, we will start with candidate Rzewnicki. How will you ensure transparency and accountability of the city budget, including the size of the deficit? And related, do you have any plans for an audit or review of city expenditures related to major infrastructure projects?
For transparency, one of the things that I recently proposed at a commission meeting, actually it was a priority session, not a commission meeting, but we had discussed dashboards, and at I think it was the last commission meeting or the last two, we had a presentation about having, and this is a web-based dashboard, where residents would be aware of capital improvement projects, what the cost of that capital improvement project is, where we currently stand, what the location is. We lack that type of transparency. And the reason why this dashboard was being proposed is because the people who sit on this commission change, okay? Our residents change, our staff positions change, and if we don't have a system that can continuously be open so that people can see through time, then we lose history. You know, I've been doing a lot of digging in history in some of our older communities, and it's hard to find what has happened in the past. So we really need to improve this system of transparency so that when, instead of saying we need to audit, our city is audited on financials, so we don't need to do an additional audit. But the information would be readily available for anyone. If we started a project on Gulf Boulevard, like the undergrounding of electrical, then that project would be there. People will know where we are, what phase that we're in, how much money has been spent, how much more money is needed. So we definitely need to improve that system, and I hope that's something that comes to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Causey, the same question?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that the transparency that'll be brought on by what I believe is definitely gonna happen with a page essentially on a city website that would talk about, to show you clearly, depict the status of projects that are going on, the project timeline. It'll help people understand what's going on in their neighborhood, when it's planning to be starting. It'll show them what the level of funding is for that project. So this is gonna make a huge difference for us as a community, but the very best way to handle the transparency and make sure that we stay understand where we are as a community in the budgeting is for the commissioner to stay engaged with the people in the neighborhood. And that, once again, takes a lot of time. It takes a neighborhood meeting every week is what I think is needed in every single neighborhood in District 3. And so I'm committed to that. Secondly, I will do a newsletter every week that will discuss exactly what issues of permitting that I've worked on that week. And it'll talk about the projects that are coming up and also the agenda on the next commission meeting so that people can be aware of it. Another thing that I'll be able to accomplish by this amount of time is just knocking on the doors. I've met so many people that are passionate about particular topics, but that one person is not motivated to be able to accomplish this just on their own. But when you find 3 or 4 people who are like that, you can put them together in a neighborhood meeting, and all of a sudden they get energy from each other, and they can start feeling like, yeah, we can come and talk persuasively at the commission. We can go to the county commission meeting and talk about the problems in our city. So this is vital for us.
Thank you. And for the next question, we'll start with candidate Causey. What is your assessment of the current permitting process in St. Pete Beach? And how could the challenges around this be improved to better support recovery?
Yeah, the challenges that we have is, let me say, our perception in permitting was not great here in our city before the hurricanes, from what the feedback I hear from contractors. And since the hurricane, that is the most common feedback I've gotten from the residents in District 3, is the frustrations they've dealt with. So the secret to this permitting thing is, first off, understanding the whole concept of implementing customer service. So for example, if there's gonna be a delay or there's a problem with a permit, then these things need to be communicated directly to the permit holder. They don't need to get something a week later in the mail that says you're delayed, or they don't. If there's an issue with the permit, the permit reviewer should immediately contact the person, and then they should work through the permit issue right then and there. And instead of going back onto the bottom of the stack with that permit, it should go to the top of the stack. It needs to be worked through. That way, we get things taken care of, and people feel like they know what's going on. The customer service, I'm very excited that we have a city manager here that understands customer service. I worked for Southwest Airlines for 25 years, and they are legendary for customer service. I understand customer service and how to get customer service here, and I see that our city is actually making progress in customer service. And I know for a fact that our city manager understands this as a big issue and is working towards achieving that. And do believe we're gonna turn the city around on this, and I believe I'll be instrumental in achieving that.
Thank you. Candidate Rzewnicki, same question.
Yes, thank you. So the current assessment of our permitting process, so from September 26, 2024 to today, huge difference, okay? One of the worst times in the city's life, and where we were then to where we are now is I won't say 100%, because we're not at 100%. You know, I'm a teacher, so I grade, right? So if I'm grading, I would say maybe we're at a C. We're definitely not an A. Not because people and staff are not doing the most they can do to make it better. The staff in this city have been working countless hours trying to address the needs of the residents. Now, it's the worst time of our life. So I mentioned earlier, people aren't living in their house. Someone who's not living in their house isn't gonna think our permitting process is going all that great. But we've made significant changes in the permitting office. We're managing more permits than we've had ever in the history of St. Pete Beach. Do we need improvements? Yes. Are we making errors? Yes. Do we need to fix these? Yes. The only way that we can fix this is if the community lets us know. I've been walking through the neighborhoods, talking to people, and every time someone tells me something, I said, well, why didn't you reach out? How are we gonna know what we don't know? You know, so if there's an issue going on in your home, you need to reach out to someone, myself, the city manager, the permitting office. They are doing all that they can do to address these concerns. There's unfairness, and I hate to say unfairness, it's more that some permits are going through that others are not, but I know that our city manager is addressing these, and we still have a ways to go. Heaven forbid that we would ever have to do this again. Right now, we would not be ready.
Thank you. And for the next question, we'll start with candidate Rzewnicki. What role should the city play in supporting beach preservation, public cleanliness, protection of endangered species, and encouraging private seawalls to be rebuilt?
It's a lot of different questions there. That's a big question. Okay, I'll start with, well, the city has to play a role in all the above. That's our community. That kind of sounds like resiliency of coastal environments. So what I would say is, and I'm a marine biologist in my background, so I've been involved in a lot of beach renourishment and beach cleanup efforts. I've also volunteered with turtle trekkers, and I know that we have a long way to go. I planted sea oats on the beach. So the community is pretty strong. You know, we have many groups of volunteers who help work through the skimmers, the turtle conservation, pelicans, birds. I mean, I think we're doing a lot, but we need more, because again, we lose our sand. So if we're talking about sand, because I know you've got multiple questions there, Pinellas County, I know, has put in millions of dollars to renourish our beaches. We have an upcoming dune restoration project where we're going to be doing some plantings. So I think that the community helps address these, and that the city plays a vital role in organizing all these efforts. You mentioned seawalls. I know that's something that we are currently working on right now, even in the Don Cesar neighborhood, that we hope would be a model project going forward to the city, in hopes of getting all the seawalls in one neighborhood done at once. And we hope that goes through. The ordinances for our city is for repairing our seawalls to a 5 nav. There's a lot going on in a low-lying community that needs to be addressed. But the city plays a vital role. I mean, I don't think there's anyone else but the city and the community that lives here that needs to address what's going on in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Causey, same question.
Yeah, I'll start with the beaches. So I think it's very significant that we were able to convince the county to provide the funding to bring the sand back to our beaches. And it just goes to show me that there's negotiation ability there, and I think this is something that we should be working on, because we are the second biggest contributor to Pinellas County's tourist fund. And I know that that fund can be used to help our city, and we definitely need help on the financial side. So I'm not going to give up on that, and I think it's something that we need to do. So when I think about the seawalls, I've talked to a lot of people about their seawalls, and I feel like there's confusion, and the city needs to take the leadership on helping people understand how the seawalls work. So the seawalls retain the soil that your island is built on. If we have a big hurricane, unless your seawall's 16 feet high, it's not going to keep hurricane level waters from coming into your neighborhood. So the seawall is, if, for example, if we did a NAV 5 that Betty just mentioned in her neighborhood, the problem is going to be that that is above the level of the lowest houses in her neighborhood. So if that water fills up inside of the seawall at that point, those houses would literally flood. So another idea might be to stick with the 3-foot seawall that can be added to as over time structurally. So the first step in her neighborhood, I believe, is going to be raising houses before we raise the seawall to a higher level than the houses. We can move on to events on the beach, but I'm out of time.
Sorry.
It was.
For the next question, we will start with candidate Causey. This was a very popular question topic. Flooding remains a concern for many residents. How should this city prioritize and fund flood infrastructure, and how will you fund it?
Well, it's kind of what I was getting at there on the last question, is if we look at trying to, well, first off, we are really looking at making the Donseys our neighborhood, the first neighborhood we're working on. So, and they are the lowest lying neighborhood. So when we look at there, we are looking at, how do we fix the seawalls? How do we fix the water on the streets from big rainstorms? What about water that comes in at super high tides and the wind's blowing the waves over the seawall? So there's a lot of angles to that question. Funding wise, we do have a study that's going on right now, and that's going to give us some plans on exactly how to do it. But I met with the Public Works Services Director, Camden Mills, today, and we were talking about this very thing. And I think that the ultimate solution is a pump station in that neighborhood, and having a series of sumps, basically, where the low points in the neighborhood, where there are no drains and the water forms, they need to have the ability to collect the water via a pump and pump it back to back over the seawall. So ultimately, that'll be the solution that works to keep the water off the streets in their neighborhood, and nothing else is really going to work. Pumps are required. And I did meet with the Florida Department of Transportation, and when they came to address the flooding in the Don Cesar neighborhood, they suggested we use pumps. And I said, well, what happened? And they said, our city refused pumps, and they wanted to go with this baffle design that currently people are complaining about, and they're saying it doesn't work.
Thank you. And a few folks in the back are struggling to hear, so if both of you could get a bit closer to the mic. And so the same question for candidate Rzewnicki.
Thank you. So for flooding, I'm not going to go into the weeds of the whole entire design because I would be here for hours trying to explain what we're trying to accomplish. But the question I think had to do with funding. Currently, one of the biggest things that we're doing to address flooding in District 3 is first working with multiple agencies and other municipalities on ideas and concepts that work. Engineering for flooding mitigation is not an easy task. We are in a city, and this is not just District 3, that has flex valves in places where they shouldn't be. We have seen failures that need to be addressed. I've been working with the Tampa Bay Council, I've been working with the Tampa Bay Estuary, I've been working with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, I've been working with the state, the counties, and God knows how many other people trying to look for a plan that works. There's places in Pinellas County just as lie-lowing as it is in the Don Cesar, areas of Bella Vista, areas in Boca Ciega, areas in Lido Beach, areas in Punta Vista Drive that are flooding. Okay, this is a severe problem. One of the things that we are doing currently is looking for mitigation grants, or actually we've written some mitigation grants and have been awarded for conceptual plan design. We've been writing grants to the federal government, grants to the state, grants to the county. I have personally secured $840,000 in resiliency funding that is on our budget, for those who don't see, for this specific issue. One of the things that our neighborhood is working, that was mentioned, is bonds. Sorry, bonds is in the
Thank you.
Susie, we're out of time.
And for the next question, we'll start with candidate Rzewnicki. This is on communication with residents. If elected, how do you plan to communicate with residents? And specifically, how will you manage the situation if your personal opinion differs from the views of a significant portion of the constituents?
Thank you. So one of the things that I do is participate in all available associations in District 3 who hold many community meetings of their own. Some have annual meetings, some have monthly meetings. So I've attended all those meetings, continue to do those meetings. And then obviously I work on smaller groups. One that we're currently working on is a resiliency group in the city. Sorry, I'm congested. So that's one other way that I want to continue to work. One thing that I was kind of tasked to do is to try to spread this throughout the city of St. Pete Beach, not just District 3, but is to develop different resiliency groups, specifically because our infrastructure issues is one of the priorities. Again, to try to kind of, we mentioned that we're trying to mimic what we're doing at the Don Cesar to be able to do it in all the different neighborhoods. Because the people who live in these neighborhoods are the ones that know what's going on. If the city can't be telling, or if the city wouldn't know what the people who live in those streets are observing on a daily basis. And unless we have these groups formed, we wouldn't be able to collect the data necessary to be able to make the best decisions to improve those flooding or resiliency issues. The second part of your question was I'm sorry.
Managing situations when your personal position
Oh,
or opinion
personal.
differs from the views of a.
Well, my role is to listen, really not to be giving my personal issues. So I think from our meetings, what I've always done is really listen to what the neighbors are saying, the businesses are saying. Infrastructure and flooding is not just a residential home issue. I know it's happening in places like the Dolphin Village Plaza, who's had a huge problem on stormwater. So again, it's listening to people, collecting the information needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate Causey, same question.
Yeah, I'm going to pick back up where I was before, and it's this communicating with the constituents inside of District 3. It is a two-way thing, and if the commissioner is committed to voting with the consensus opinion, as I was saying before, it forces a person who's trying to push a project to sell that project to the community, because they know the commissioner is going to vote with the community. So I can help people who want to have a project in the community. I can bring them to a neighborhood meeting. I can say, okay, look, here is what the neighbors are saying.
So that way we can manage expectations, and in that way, project people can get their project through even better, and it'll end up being a better thing for the community. So the secret of this is spending enough time in the neighborhood and with the people on a weekly basis so that you stay connected, and it's a two-way piece of information flowing between what's coming up, what's going on, and people get to hear what their neighbors are saying. You can tell the neighbors in one neighborhood what the people in the other neighborhood are saying. This all takes a lot of time. Also, I mentioned the weekly updates, and I will definitely always answer every email that ever comes in to me, and because I think that is so important that people get the feedback. So I know that it's very hard for commissioners to do that. I've heard a lot of complaints about not receiving emails from commission. And there's a lot of people in the town, but it takes a lot of time, but you have to do it.
Thank you. We will now move to closing statements. I wasn't able to ask every question. Thank you so much for all of the questions you submitted. I tried my best to go with the topics that had the most demand. For closing statements, we will start with candidate Rzewnicki, so opposite order of opening statements. What I will say is there were a couple questions on asking about specific priorities for District 3, so if you can work that into the closing statement, you're up to both of you, but welcome back.
Do you tell me when to start? Yes, sir?
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and to everyone who's joined us tonight. St. Pete Beach is my home and my family's. And for 16 years, I've served this community from my neighborhood association to local advisory, school advisory council for Gulf Beaches Elementary, to a resiliency committee group, local coastal cleanups, to environmental stewardship board, and to the city commission. My entire career has been rooted in public service, and that experience matters when you're making decisions that affect the community. People's homes, safety, and quality of life are dependent on us. I've always approached this role from a nonpartisan, community-first perspective. Local government isn't about party politics. It's about solving problems, asking the right questions, and making sure every community member feels heard. That's why I roll up my sleeves and do the work, writing grants, securing resiliency funding, supporting storm recovery, and working directly with the residents, community members, and businesses when they need help. I care deeply about this city, and I've shown that through steady leadership, transparency, and commitment into listening. I'm proud of what we've accomplished together, and I am ready to continue this work, strengthening our infrastructure, improving resiliency, and ensuring St. Pete Beach remains safe, vibrant, and unified community. Thank you for your time tonight, and thank you everyone that is here supporting all the candidates and all the people who are participating or will be seeing this later on. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Causey, your closing statement?
Yeah, so I think it gets back to a big difference here being how much time it's going to take to actually accomplish all the things that need to be accomplished. I honestly think we're going to need about 8 hours a day of commissioner work, and I'm not sure you're going to get that out of the current commissioner. So I just feel like I have more time availability. I believe with my engineering background that I'm going to be able to see bad solutions. I would ask, why are we still putting in the flapper valve and baffle system that people are complaining about and literally doesn't work at high tides? So we're still spending money on that, and I would ask, why are we doing that? And I know that the right answer involves pumps instead, and I know the state agrees with me on that. I think that it's results that really we need right now, and I know that I care about serving you guys, and I believe for sure I'll be able to do a better job than your current commissioner. So I would urge you to vote for me because of those reasons. I will also like to mention that one of the all-stars in our city right now is your state representative, Linda Cheney. She's brought millions of dollars into this city since the hurricanes for recovery. She's decided to endorse me for the Commission 3, and commissioner job. And that's because she thinks I'll do a better job for you. She's from here, she has a house here, and she understands the problems here. And she's got us money, and she wants to work with me to get everything we need here.
Thank you to both of our candidates for participating this evening and for your commitment to public service. I want to share a few reminders for voters before we break and start the mayoral forum. One of our most important missions at the League of Women Voters is voter education to make sure everyone can vote. So please contact the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections to ensure your mailing address is current. Vote by mail ballots are not forwardable if you have moved or you're at an alternative address. Florida law requires voters to request a vote by mail ballot after each general election. Vote by mail ballots must be received by the Supervisor of Elections no later than 7 p.m. on election day. So it's not the postmark, it's when it is received. And we encourage you to send it about 10 days in advance to be sure. So for a March 10th election, you're looking at the end of February or March 1st to be on the safe side. Nonpartisan information about the election, the candidates, and their responses to additional questions is available in the voter guide at vote411.org. Thank you to the League volunteers who assisted with this forum and to the staff of St. Pete Beach City for all of their support and for helping us to host this event, to all of you for being here and for all of your great questions. This concludes the St. Pete Beach Commissioners Forum for District 3. We will be taking about a 10-minute or a little under break to switch over for the Mayor's Forum. Please do start thinking about your questions and get those together so we can do our best to organize them and get through as many as possible for you. Thank you very much.